The government says brain has been drained. They say billions of dollars have been swept out. Bank has no money. And then we say we are doing great job. Students are happy. They have been, working hard to create their journey and careers. So to whom we do we trust? So the time has come for AAERI Nepal to start discussing whether our job has been appreciated by the people, by the government. So with this initiative at AAERI Nepal, this time around, we have started the panel, and then we have amazing panelists today. So I like to moderate the sessions, and hopefully, it's going to come out pretty well. So to start with, we have a little to set the tone and the basic house rules is that each panelist will speak about 8 to 10 minutes based on their experiences, and also some of the some of the common questions could be passed on to the next panelist. We shall also open the floor for questions towards the end, and we shall have enough takeaways from this discussion. So the first question goes to Samriddhi Gewali. And as Samriddhi is the alumni from the University of Sydney, and also amazing entrepreneurs putting her the company, the media house in the first, probably the first public listing company. So probably she is the right candidate to share about the challenges and opportunity for Nepalese students studying in Australia. Definitely there are a whole lot of opportunities, but then the social, the economical, the cultural shocks, and those challenges are there. So would like to, you as a student, would like to share your experiences.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Duyarjai. Thank you everyone for having me here, Your Excellency and distinguished guests, friends from the press, my industry, love them. Just going straight up to talking about challenges and opportunities. I was a student 9 years ago, so the memory may not be very vivid, but I will share as much as I can. When we look at going abroad and studying, right, every single Nepali sitting here or in Nepal, we're looking at opportunities. We think there's a better life for me somewhere else. There's better skills, there is better place where I can gain and learn more, and probably those skills and life lessons will actually give me a better lifestyle somewhere else. A lot of us Nepalese actually choose to go to Australia to study because we see an opportunity to actually build a life there. A lot of us, maybe there's few exceptions sitting in this room, but a lot of us actually want to go pursue education not only in Australia because we want to pursue and come back to Nepal. Instead, we actually want to pursue a lifestyle in Australia. And that is a very common feeling that I have felt when I was in Australia myself as well. So when we talk about opportunities, why Australia? I mean, Australia is a multilingual, multicultural country. It is one of the most open-hearted, lovely country that gives opportunities to students and to everyone who walks into the country with open hearts, open arms, to build a life. And the life there is beautiful. I mean, in terms of opportunities, we have immense job roles there. In terms of quality of lifestyle, obviously we don't have pollution and water issues like the ones we have in Nepal. In terms of traffic, there's none of those that we actually experience. So obviously, in general, life is better in Australia compared to Nepal in many sorts, right? And that's probably why a lot of our Nepalese students want to actually go pursue something there, so we can actually grow and live there and maybe make a life around there. So those are the very obvious opportunities that I just pointed out, which every one of us are quite aware of. I feel that the opportunities that we don't really talk about are the soft skills, the soft opportunities that once we leave our comfort zone, our comfort level in Nepal, when we take that challenge to actually go out and establish ourselves, we learn a lot about soft skills. And these skills are character building. So when we are 18 or 19 and we leave our comfort zone, we leave our beautiful country where, everyone is chineko manche, all of us are related to each other, friends, all of that circle, we just leave that and go to a completely new environment to establish ourselves, to grow there. It takes immense level of challenge. It takes an immense level of resilience and immense level of desire and decisiveness. And those kind of skills that we learn when we travel outside from our comfort zone and try to build something for ourselves, that is actually something that those are life skills that we develop, and those are things that we don't really often talk about, because we definitely talk about gaining an accounting degree or, a CTO role or like a technology degree. But in the process of getting a degree, there's a lot of life experiences we learn, which actually develop character and build the person we are. And I think those soft skills are life skills. That's what is going to define us as people, and that's what's going to take us forward in life. Now, these are the opportunities, the very obvious ones, and the other opportunities that develop our characters and life skills. But the challenges that I see right now is that even when I look at it, I won't say challenges, but I think it's a challenge and opportunity at the same time. When we look at a lot of Nepalese who have been pursuing a career in Australia, we don't see them in the top 10 paying jobs. Like, we don't see a lot of Nepali as a cardiac surgeon or as a GP or like a CTO level or a CEO level, right? So we are sending a lot of Nepali students to pursue a career, pursue a lifestyle in Australia. However, there are certain fields that we don't really see impact from us Nepali in general, right? And I think that's where an opportunity lies for educational institutes in Nepal to create that sort of skill set where we are quite sellable and competitive in a market that is highly paying, that a country that is doing so well, where we are able to, grow and pursue careers that are in the top five pay ranged careers. I think that's where we can actually make a lot more impact. And that is an opportunity and a challenge for us as Nepali, out there. Similarly, I think one of the other things that I have realized when I was studying was that Australia is a very open country, in a sense that when you go to America to study, you don't actually get these work hours, As a student, you don't get a paid job as per se. But Australia is quite welcome. When I was studying, it was 20 hours, but I believe it's increased now. I'm not sure. So it was 20 hours when I was studying, right? Now this, and Australia is a very well paid, highly, they pay very well. I mean, whatever job, the pay scale is quite good. So that's an opportunity. And what I mean by opportunity is that as a student, we get to experience a life of a working professional. When you go to study in America, for that matter, because my brothers have studied in America, university lives, right? So you're not in the middle of the city. But when you go to Australia, there's a lot of colleges which is in the brim of cities where opportunities to work is quite high as well. And this kind of gives you a privy to a working professional life. It gives you a lot of access, it gives you a lot of opportunities, but it also makes you very accountable and responsible. Like when you go to Australia, you get to rent your own apartment, which means you get to do your own finances, you get to do your own electricity bills, you get to do all of those things that in the other countries like the US or somewhere else, you don't get that opportunity. You're not getting that freedom and accountability. So I think studying in Australia gives you that opportunity of actually being a much more responsible, financially literate and responsible person much earlier in life than what kind of experience you would have gathered around in other countries, where the restrictions in terms of like work and life is quite heavy in terms of visas, right? So I think those are certain opportunities. But again, like I think coming back to everything, wherever there's opportunities, there are challenges. And the biggest challenge that I see is that we need to be able to compete in jobs that are highly paid in Australia. And that really does come back to the foundations, the education foundations in Nepal, because that's the kind of students we want to produce in Nepal who can go and work anywhere around the world and grab the topmost, opportunities around the world. And I think that's pretty much it from my side.
Thank you very much, Samridhi. Amazing. So I think you have covered up more or less everything that every students or parents, considering about Australia. And also, since we have so many agencies here, consultants here who works day and night advising students, and me as a consultant for last 20 years, and also parents, a father of two daughters who are, one is doing her almost finishing her university, the younger one, doing her high school there. And then I can definitely see the kids in this world needs a lot of exposure. And somehow, since Nepal is growing and it's going to take time, and in the meantime, to prepare our future leaders, I think we need great exposures. The way the Chinese did, the way the Indians did, traveling all across thousands of miles, explore the world. Now you can see they're bringing back. And as somebody said, you need CEOs. And in order to become a great CEOs, you need to go to the top universities. And so we as a consultant, our job is to also, for mediocre students, mediocre institution, but then top students who can pay, who can afford education, higher education, send them to the top. I could see when I go to University of Sydney, every classrooms, mostly Chinese, and then after that Indians. I see out of say 200, only 1 or 2 Nepalese students. That we have to change. So thank you very much for your wonderful words. Now I will move on to Ujjal. So the second questions that I have is the impact of Australian education on the Nepalese economy. So having said this, I just got a little information from the Australian embassy here. Paul shared with me, especially on the last couple of years of bilateral trade. And out of that, I could see basically the biggest exports from Nepal, or say for Australia imports, is education, which is about onshore, offshore, about $2.5 billion. And if you look at the imports from Nepal, it's pretty nominal. I mean, very negligible. It's about $15 million. And that also mainly on the floor, like carpets and those stuff, and some edible like chow chow and stuff and all. So not much. So, but then again, since we are buying education, and you have to pay for knowledge, it's not free, right? So they invest billions of dollars to build the university, and definitely, it's a business. It's a service business. And recently, I mean, there was an amazing news that America has bought about $40 million of dog chew this year. Dog chew is something for the food for the dogs, which is about $40 million, which is amazing news this time, around 4 arba. And then I think that is something that we can. Definitely Australia doesn't import the milk product, but then this could be something that we can, definitely talk to, or maybe have a bilateral, and definitely the ambassador is going to share the free trade agreements are coming up between Nepal and India, Nepal and Australia. So likewise, there are quite a few, raw material that are, kind of cultivated and produced in Nepal big time. I could see the coffee is coming up. The ginger is amazing here. The cardamom is probably the world's largest. And also the amazing water resource that we can always make amazing Evian type water and then sell it across the world. So likewise, a lot of herbs and stuff and all. So Ujjal, you being a graduate of Australia and also running an empire in Nepal, and also FNCCI, general executive members. So what is your say on it? So over to you, Ujjal.
Thank you, Deoraji. Your Excellency, friends, Dayaru, and media friends, thank you, AAERI Nepal, for having me here with the other panelists. First off, congratulations on your 5th AGM of AAERI Nepal. I want to start with how I landed in Australia. I was working in my family business after returning from the US. About 4 or 5 years down, and I wanted to study in Asia, and I wanted to be in the West also. Somehow, somewhere, I reached Alpha Care, Alpha Beta Consultancy, and they helped me process my application for RMIT MBA program, and that's how I reached in Australia. And at that time, I did not know him, but It's, small world, we just connect, and I'm here sitting and talking about Australian education and the impact of its economy in Nepal. It's been 61 years of diplomatic relation. I did not know. I just Googled up a lot of things, just to get my stats correct. Interesting, a lot of support, a lot of learning, a lot of aid, a lot of health, education. And of course, one thing that really picked up my attention was governance support and strengthening by the Australian government. And that's what I've been learning in the FNCCI recently. How can we have our diplomatic relations from different countries help Nepal governance be more stronger, because that is one of the biggest hurdle in our economic growth. How I think wherever we are Nepalese in Nepal or outside, I think we've done quite a bit in different levels of different aspect. And today we see so many Nepalese who've studied in Australia making a huge impact globally also, like Dr. Sandeep Ruet, or even our latest politician, member of parliament, Mr. Wagley, and a lot of people who've been in Australia. I know it's a bit of economy and Nepal, but I just want to share one thing to this forum that I have always told my friends, had I known about Australia much before, I would never have gone to the US. Because I loved it so much that if it was not my family business here, I would have stayed in Australia to work, because the cultural diversity and the acceptance was so nice. And for me to say I'm from Nepal was everybody could resonate locally also, and that felt almost home. So that's very important. I think that's where Australia wins the heart of Nepalese people also. And and we all can resonate with Australia somehow, somewhere, because one or the other relative is in Australia today. So interesting fact I just picked up earlier by the president of AAERI, that the government is earning almost $10 million a year on taxes and revenue just on this service provider, on the consultancy also, which I was not aware of. What I want to share is the networking that Australia gives. Before I come the economy, I had about 17 countries in my MBA group, and today those are my closest friends than my college days. And I've started to reach out to them for any business or any lead in any of the various countries, So the diversity really plays today in my business experience also. And, whatever we've picked up during our education has always been great, because what a lot of success stories I've recently heard is poultry, coffee, restaurants, people who've been educated when they did their education in Australia have opened a lot of businesses in Nepal, and I think that is not measurable, and that shows where we've picked up the business acumen to a lot of experience in living in Australia, and that's amazing. One thing I really wanted to highlight, given that Excellency is here and the economic aspect for Nepal, is how do we really look at the FDI impact in Nepal? Because I gathered some data, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about $8 to $9 million so far, or maybe $10 million of FDI that's entered Nepal in the last few data that I've checked. And given Australia being so rich in terms of agriculture, dairy, minerals, where can we get Australian FDI, especially in education sector? Because we are today an area where we talk about all education consultancy. How can we bring affiliation, not only affiliation, create universities where with an Australian education in Nepal that gives that experience for say high school level or diploma level or whatever level, so further education, adding to somebody's point where we can get better job placement tomorrow. Because over here we have I think students going from families to families and making their own earnings to pay their college at the same time they're living, and I think that would really help. One of the other sector that I was looking at is Australia also had played a little part of on the hydro sector as well in the last many years, and how we can really enhance hydro sector in the economic growth of Nepal also. The other thing is the investment potential, where I come from a manufacturing background, and we as a manufacturer in Nepal, we always seek for foreign, international companies. And having being so close to Australia, where manufacturing, resource, minerals, mines, everything is there, how can we technically tie up? That's one exploration for Nepal, because I think in Nepal we want to do a lot of things, but at the same time we are not manufacturing core, but we are trying to be as dependent as possible in minimizing our imports. That's been always the biggest debate in the government. And what we try to do, and from a private sector, from manufacturing, is whatever we can do, a bit of know-how or technical knowledges. And I think, given me being in Australia already for many years in the past, I already see that there's so much of advantage and there's so much of welcomeness in Australia that I think we can use that relation of Australia to Nepal in terms of manufacturing also, where I think the economic impact for Nepal would be quite a lot. I understand the biggest hurdle also is us. It's an obvious thing that the bureaucratic system in Nepal also is a big hurdle, and we understand that. And I think what I always say is, it's a very Nepali thing that we tend to not to listen to our own people, but we listen to strangers, right? So this is indirectly to Your Excellency that, having your support and suggestion to the government, they usually listen to us because they always see us as their own people, and our advice always seems to pass through their ears. But when it comes to diplomatic relations, suggestions, and support, it's always taken very strongly, because one of the example I want to share is about 3-4 years ago, income tax filing to a certain level was still face-to-face with bureaucrats, right? To a certain level category. Today it's digital because of diplomatic relations. So I already saw that a lot of support on aid and the forests, community forests. I was reading through the books. It's so many things that Australia is already doing for Nepal's economic growth, stability, and sustainability. But the relation where I think the governance is where I was really interested, how we can really work with the Australian government on learning things. Because one of the things I took away during my university days was the rooftop scheme by the government. And I wish that time that Nepal had adapted that when we were in the peak load shedding times, where we used to get 16 hours, 18 hours of thing, and why not there's a rooftop scheme. And even today, we always talk about this, given industrial roofs, how can we use the roofs for solar harvesting like Australia has done it. So there's so many takeaways being a student in Australia to running a business today for us, because we see opportunity in everything. For us, any experience and exposure for coming from Nepal is so much opportunity that we see in Nepal that we can do. At the same time, our internal hurdle is its own. And I just wanted to say this much because I don't know much of the data, but I know one thing for sure, that we are, in the last 5 years, I think our export to Australia has grown by 2 times, but the export from Australia has grown 3 times. So we really need to catch up on that figure, and it was interesting that at least that also has started, and I'm 100% sure it's through the students. They see so many products here that they can take to Australia. Even that $15 million that I saw in the data was done by the students who went to Australia, and that's how the bilateral trade relations has developed. So, indirectly it comes to you guys, connecting the dots where we can, do some business at the end. So thank you.
From medical services, from medical professional to agriculture, to education, to bureaucracy, banking, to coffee shop owners, and the top education consultants, to politics. We have a whole lot of Australian graduates, just to take few names. Definitely our ANA president going to take more, but then I cannot stop myself, but taking Dr. Sandhu Grohit, Australian returnee, Dr. Dibya Singh, she's from Monash University, Dr. Samir Dixit, just to take few names, Vijay Raj Pandey from the agriculture science, Dr. Damodar Pokhrel, he was ANA's ex-president. And then Ramhari Aryal, the previous chief of secretary, Dipendra Bahadur Chetri, the governor. They all were, graduates, and probably they must have, worked hard to at least to raise the standards of this country and the numbers are still counting. So now let me move on because we have definitely the time limitation. And since this is the first programs as such in our 5 years history, so we are yet to again streamline. But then I'm so happy to take our invitations, accept our invitations, amazing Australian graduates. So now I will move on to Ananta Porel. So the question for him is the role of Australian graduates in nation building. This is pretty straight question. In way forward for the Australian education sector in Nepal. So there are quite a few challenges as there's a bottlenecks in our bureaucracy, there's a bottlenecks in our political system. So somehow the private sector trying to do, but then somehow it's not happening. So Ananta would like to highlight as how we're going to mend this.
Thank you, Dheeraj sir. Congratulations to AAERI Nepal for its 5th AGM. And I would like to also congratulate the entire executive team as well as the current president, Mahesh Babuji, and wish him all the best for future ahead as well. Thank you so much, Dheeraj. The role of Australian graduates in nation building, like you said, it's a very straightforward question.
Yeah.
But I felt it was a tough question as well to begin with. But nonetheless, I mean, like not just Australian graduates, any graduates, they have an immense role in nation building. To become a graduate, you consistently need to progress. The person needs to pass 10, grade 12, bachelor's, and there's always a consistent progression. And I feel like consistency is always the key. And that's where the person feels that they can take on challenges. And nation building is full of challenges, like we all know. Of course, graduate can play a general role by contributing in points like economic development, skilled workforce, entrepreneurship, education and training, innovation, policy and governance, but also develop collaboration locally and globally because of their expertise, which they can connect through worldwide. But when we look at Australian graduates, that's the key highlight of today's session. I, being an Australian graduate myself, I'm very biased. I feel Australians are special. And I think Australian graduates, all of them are special. Let's just look at a little bit of detail what Australian graduates are made of. As we all know, Nepal is now currently ranked as the 3rd source country for international students, following China and India. The reason being that Nepalese are good, hardworking, and kind-hearted people. And Aussies are very open. Aussies have opened their arms and borders for us, which I highly appreciate. The Australian graduates, they have received a very high-quality education system, which has a good blend of the theoretical as well as practical education. Almost all Australian education universities are ranked among the top 2% in the world. So the quality speaks for itself. And the delivery of the education is, I think, superior than many other countries. I think after that, my friends from UK and USA will block me in my LinkedIn profile. But it's true. You have a very limited number of education providers, and all of them focus on quality. And that's where the government's key focus is there as well. So they've got multiple acts which safeguard the quality, which again is passed on to the Australian graduates who are very successful. The Australian graduates, they have good English skills, which would make them confident to speak with any person from any nationality. And they also have the core ability to cook, clean, manage money, and manage time, which would make them very independent. And of course, which somebody mentioned, the soft skills, which are one of the most important skills required today. Because at the end, degree everyone may have again. And after that, what differentiates? It's the soft skills. But another important part, I think, that an Australian graduate would have that would make them leaders is that they are also exposed to part-time work opportunities, which would give them an opportunity to learn about the dignity of labor. A lot of students during their study period would not get high-paying jobs. They would start off with the basic jobs that would be in hospitality or in convenience stores, which a lot of students end up being. but that does provide them a good value, because that does teach them a dignity of labor, which I think is very important, because that does provide you some core realization that if you with even the most simplest of efforts, you can change your circumstances, and when the circumstances start to change, you can really catch up the progression train. And likewise, when the graduates pass out, they get post-study work visas that span from 2 years to 6 years. And in that time, the students can land a very serious job. For example, an IT graduate, a 10+2 student in Nepal would study bachelor's of IT. Upon graduation, can land a job in places like Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, which would be completely impossible if they were studying over here in Nepal. And that is something that will really, really boost up their confidence. Students of business, accounting fields would land up jobs in the big banks like the Commonwealth Bank or the Deloitte or PwC, or major international companies, which would expose them to a global corporate work culture, and also expose them to a very efficient style of working, which has evolved through your competitiveness throughout the world. And most importantly, they also learned about having a work balance, getting exposed to a work balance, which is very much in Australia. Say suppose if you in Nepal, if you want to do any work, you can still call the person 7 a.m. in the morning or 9 p.m. in the night. You expected the work to be done just the following day. But in Australia, after Friday, everything is done. So Saturday, Sunday, go for some shopping or a barbecue, nothing else will be done. There's nothing else to do except catch up with friends, have some beers, some wines. But nonetheless, work balance, which I think is really important. And I always wrote that even in Nepal, I hope we have 5 days a week work, because we are just struggling with work all of the time. That's what I feel. And one of the favorite things that about Australia, I think, is the graduates are exposed to fair play and equality, which I think is one of the most important. So they are exposed to a system where people from the very grassroots level get the same privileges as what would get in a corporate at the top end level. And the system is free from corruption, which sometimes is hard to imagine for certain countries, sometimes like ours as well. But it has its pros, being exposed to such society. The only thing required is people need to speak up sometimes. I think in Nepal, we sometimes don't speak up, so it still stays. But yeah, all in all, they are exposed to the best way of living. Melbourne and many other cities are always home to some of the best, are always called the best cities in the world. So that's why with such a fantastic system, leaders are created. They speak up, they speak up against injustice. They speak up for what is their right. And that's where I think they have the leadership role. And now a lot of people have come back to Nepal as well. And that's where some of the stories lie. You just mentioned some of the very notable names as well. Dr. Damodar Pokhrel, who pioneered open heart surgery in Nepal. Dr. Divya Singh Shah, kidney transplant. Sanduk Druid, low-cost eye surgery. They all are living legends. I mean, like, we have people still working who pioneered open heart surgery. Yeah. And they are complete living legends. But likewise, there are thousands of healthcare workers as well who are strengthening the Australian healthcare system. We have to appreciate their effort as well, because it definitely must have been a very difficult journey coming from Nepal, going to Australia, completing their degree, and working in an Australian healthcare system. And a lot of them are fighting in the front line of the hospitals, in the critical care system, to save their patients. And a lot of appreciation were also received during the COVID time, when Nepalese were in the forefront to combat COVID. Likewise, in the environment sector, the Nepalese community forestry sector is one of the most notable environment conservation efforts in the world. And more than 100 Australian graduates have contributed to develop that result. It's known globally. It's got outstanding results. The community forestry sector, you have to look to it, research on it if you haven't, but it's amazing. Likewise, there are a lot of Australian graduates who are also in the top leading INGO position, not just locally, but globally as well. Nepalese graduates are in Thailand, are in Laos. One of my friend Ayush Karki, who was studying in Monash, he was stationed in Laos, Thailand for a long time, and he was in a very leading position. So that is something that we all can be proud of. And it is a testament that Australian education is taken very seriously around the world, and it works. And likewise, graduates are also working in the alternative energy programs, working in solar energy projects to light up homes, and which has helped light up the homes for more than hundreds of thousands of people where our electricity commission has not been able to reach. So similarly, in the field of economics and management, like Doraji you mentioned, we have governors, foreign secretaries, deputy governors, we've got the directors like myself. I have to take a little bit credit right there. And we also have the youngest Sah Sachib at the age of 32 who came back from Australia, and that has really helped him in the career. And that could have been any other country, but any other graduate, but it is an Australian graduate. So there has to be an X factor. We've also got deans of social sciences in Tribhuvan University, like Kusum ma'am, who is a very fierce, strong leader, and she always tells me, Ananta, there's so much of struggles. Also being a woman in power, I have to acknowledge her strength and might to fight against the system, to fight against a very male-driven society, and she's done an absolute wonderful job. And we've also got CTVT Colombo Staff College, which is run in Manila, but it is run by a Nepalese Australian graduate. So elsewhere as well, we've got colleges run by Nepalese Australian graduate, and not to, we can't miss out entrepreneurs like Gaganji and Kemsa right here. It's always an honor, such a privilege to stay with him. But like you said, Doraji, I can go for hours with these success stories, and they really need to be celebrated. I think so, and this is and they really need to be told to the students who need to be inspired. I think, but nonetheless, so many success stories in nation building. I would say Australian graduates are confident in all sectors, whether that's health, environment, science, engineering, commerce, governance. But right now, I think all that they need is a welcome note from the government to come back. Because some of them, a good number of the Australians, Nepalese, are still settled in Australia with a PR. And I thank the Australian government for providing the PR to our citizens as well, which is a wonderful opportunity. Which is a wonderful opportunity for them to get settled, to find great jobs in global companies, and also develop a community in Australia, and also have deep pockets. Those people have access to good finance opportunities over there. And that's what I think our government seriously needs to understand, is that we've got a big network, more than 1 lakh people who are already settled there in Australia. We've got a very big network who still have great love for their country, who still want to come back, but fear that the government might not be very supportive, but fear any investment might not have fruit to bear at the end. So that's where I think we all need to brainstorm further to change, because now we have reached to a point where almost every Nepali family would have some person abroad, whether that's in Australia, whether that's in America or in UK. We need to be more flexible with our foreign affairs, I think so, and be more welcoming, because we've got a super powerhouse of diaspora who are in amazing industries already settled, whether that's in the IT, or that's in hospitality, or that's in banking. I've got a lot of friends who are in top positions in Commonwealth Bank already. I think the days where we'll see Nepalese CEOs are not very far. And I think within the next 10 years or so, we might be able to see that dream. And I think somebody is completely right, and they are already so much deserving. I think, Doraji, you can take Anil Sahaji on a tour to Australia. He can really motivate a lot of youths, which he is very splendid at doing, and he has also motivated me in a lot of ways. And that's where I think the road lies. And We just need to get a few of them back, and then I think it'll be good for the
We
nation.
just need one Elon Musk in this country.
Yeah,
What do you say?
yeah,
Or
definitely.
Satya Narayan or somebody. You know?
Right.
Right. Thank you very much. I think
Thank you so much.
we have another 30 minutes to go. My president is also there. Thank you, Ananta, for sharing such a amazing information. The graduates, the Australian alumni working in this country, and you as a youth ANA president, probably this data has to go to our government system. That the contribution individually in the nation building, also in terms of Nepalese residing in Australia and also recruiting a lot of people in this country. You talk about accounting, talk about IT. Almost, I think there was a not very accurate sort of information, but then almost $500 million of service, being sold out of the employment created by Nepalese living in Australia. And you talk about tourism locally, a lot of Australian Nepalese traveling this country. They go all around, they go Pokhara, they go Lumbini. You hardly see these days any white faces, to be honest. And they spend like anything. For them, the hotel room has to be cheaper. They spend like anything in food and drinks. So, I mean, those sort of tourism, the local tourism, the diaspora, Nepali diaspora is the way forward. We invite them, create better infrastructure to travel around. So I think the government sector has to do a lot of things, but then let's, we as a responsible citizen of this country, so we also have to keep knocking those people. So moving ahead, I have my wonderful friend, Kem Lokai. He's one of the, probably the most respectful person in the hospitality training industry. We shared more or less the same vision for this country. Think globally, act locally. We believe in boundaryless world and understand what is best for this country. But we have limitations. We believe with positivity, we shall bring change. Education is the key for knowledge-based economy in any country. Country like Nepal do not need a lot of PhDs and master degree holder. In Australia, only 50% are bachelor's degree holder. The rest all goes to vocational education. And then in Nepal, almost, I mean, it's not accurate, but then estimately around 50,000 our friends from neighboring Indian states are working in industries like, in works like tiles and sanitary, plumbing, construction, vegetable and food vending. And then unfortunately our people are going to like 50 degree in Middle Eastern countries and working. So the country, the leadership needs, a lot of information to these people and also maybe skills and skill-based vocational training. So you as a private providers, basically also you run an Australian TAFE degree here in the hospitality in cookery. So how the Australian TNA, the Transnational Education Opportunity in Nepal, and how the Nepali government, the policies, just like in India recently, the Deccan University has started their campus. Also the Victoria University already have a campus in Gujarat. And Curtin University has a campus in Malaysia. Monash has a campus in Sri Lanka. Also University of Wollongong has a campus in Dubai, and to name many, to name few, right? So we want Australian university in this country, right? So how do you go about it and how you want to advise the government? So all the information will be recorded and it's going to go to the ministry for sure. Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be in this, listening to the views of those Australian attorney, well-doing leaders, youth leaders particularly here. And I'm truly inspired, and also the topic that is close to my heart. And I see I'm a new generation political leader is also, Anilji is right there. So
he's a witness.
what I would like to say, that what she didn't mention is I always write, when I write my profile, although it was for a short period of time, although it was not a big degree, but I went to Australia to pursue my education, and technical and vocational education. It's called TAE Certificate 4. And so I'm a Certificate 4 graduate of that. And it's true, this nation, or any nation that has developed, evolved, has one thing in common. They have taken technical and vocational education seriously. Yes, we do need people, thinkers in our society, university graduates, yes. But then we equally need those doers. You know, in management, there are 3 layers: finder, minder, and grinders. And you're talking about who actually change the nation, the technical skills. And our neighboring countries have realized that. I mean, you see a best example how quickly India has evolved, how much they have taken TVET seriously. In our country, I know that a national vocational qualification system is being discussed. So Parliament, few things is done, still a long way to go. But most importantly, the mindset of our society, of our government, how do we view it? There's a huge gap. For me, it's been 8 years, and I'm so proud. So in 2012, I was in Australia for the course, and I was introduced to TAFE by Australian Gary Bards, who was a consultant to Swiss Embassy on technical and vocational education, because he was a TAFE trainer.
Yeah.
He always bragged about TAFE, and then I did my little bit of research. Gary, I have to go and be a student myself. And that is it. I was introduced to 17 different TAFE campuses, from Twin Town to all the way to Port Macquarie. And then that was eye-opening for me, with a lot of friends, and understood the backbone of how Australian economy is made. Has a lot to do with technical and vocational education. Similarly, all the countries that I traveled, you're right, I mean, 15 to 20% people are high university goers. But then most people in Australia, let's say, they don't bother. I mean, they see which skill I would like to take, and they master it. And more than the master's degree, they believe in mastery. And that mastery brings prosperity to the nation, you know. And that is what this country needs. And I think I already mentioned that I'm so proud that we took this commercial cookery certificate 3 now. Yeah. And you see the graduates, what they are able to do with that short education. And they believe in competency, you know, not only knowledge. Now there are many avenues to acquire knowledge these days, but then the power of your skill, power of your competency, they become a global citizen. And what they bring to this nation is immense. If you become a chef, it doesn't matter wherever you end up. Even in Nepal, there are so many emerging new 5-star hotels coming up. And very soon you will see, if we don't pay attention, we'll have to import those chefs. I'm telling you, I mean, it's already a crisis. Yeah. And so this will be unwise for us not to tap into that potential. And in the same breath, I would like to mention, yes, I mean, there are some successful models. I mean, I'm glad that Gujarat, you already have a university, and Malaysia already has Monash. Yeah. I have a colleague who did half studies in Malaysia and then finished her rest in Australia. Right. That model exists. Yeah. Yeah. And you see some of the latest model, you go to Abu Dhabi, you go to Doha, the top universities are there. Yeah. Even in Dubai, I mean, you have to apply. Yeah. Those universities, to be in Dubai, they apply and then they shortlist and they say whether we want or not, right? Yeah. And so education is the only game changer. So I'm talking about 2 avenues, one technical and vocational education, which we have piloted with great courage, resistance, I don't want much about it. But then finally people have understood that, oh, this is good for Nepal, and then this has been widely accepted. Yeah. I would like to add more and more onto that, and then it's not only me, I just did what I could. But more and more people in all 7 provinces, if we could bring those sets of skills, let's say blueberry farming. Yeah. You see Peru, for example, Chile, for example, just past 10 years, you should see their graph of how much blueberry they exported, right? 10 years, we're not talking about a century, right? Where do we get these skills? I've seen those blueberry farm in in Australia. And so macadamia nuts, I just want to share this story for fun. There was a, horticulture teacher, and I wanted desperately a plant of macadamia nuts. And give you, but I cannot guarantee whether you will be able to take. I inquired and I could bring, and I'm very proud to mention that I've got a macadamia nuts in my campus, and I produce about 20 plus kilo, and then half of them I propagate and produce more plants and give it to the farmers, and then they're producing now, and then all of a sudden we realize that we could grow a lot of macadamia nuts here, right? It's only symbolic to me. What I mean, I'm not an agriculture expert, but then those people who really see probability, those are the directions. And the government should be very excited for this possibility. And so we see last year we met a number of scholars from Charles Darwin University. They're keen, they're here. But it's up to our government, because without our government support and then clear, transparent policy, we can do very little. We as citizens, we have very limited rights, right? And so I think this is a time now to be open-minded, to embrace more and more such exchanges, so that it supports our industry, brings the economy, and it's good for the young people. And so this is my hope. And there's no reason why we shouldn't explore this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ken, sir. Give him a good round of applause. So, training and education, that also high quality education is, I think, the need of this hour in this country. I think we have too many politicians, but we have very less entrepreneurs, very less skillful people. I mean, I keep traveling to Australia probably every 2 months, and, I have probably traveled Australia more than Nepal, and, last time, I think there was a initiative by the Australian government here, so we managed to visit the Adelaide Hill in South Australia, and then we managed to visit quite a few big time high tech agriculture initiative, mainly in hydroponic technology, and there are a whole lot of investment from other countries also there, and I could see the way they have been developing the system to create the amazing, the agriculture base and exporting a whole lot of things to other countries. So, and there was also an initiative of making Nepal Australian standard stuff, and it was pretty much a good case studies by the Australian embassy here. So we have a whole lot of things, and probably this is just a beginning, and we are the people that we shall be, getting ourselves in dialogue and, bring out things, and probably one day a person like Anil Dai will come in the ministry and we are all there. Anil Dai, what do you say? Right. So with this, I think we are pretty much short of time. And to the ambassador, we just said she has to leave at 8. So with with great respect, I would like to thank you all the 4 panelists. Thank you for coming. And we're going to have at least 2 panel as such every year, and we're going to bring the entire world to Nepal, and let our government, the policymaker know that, hey guys, we still have hope. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, gentlemen.